So before we get started, I want you to tell me how you think you did.
Alright, for the most part, I stepped out the comfort zone a little bit. Just trying to move away from my typical, this is a PowerPoint, this is the notes you're taking, this is a quiz you're gonna take on top of it. So I think it went well for just, trying to implement new stuff. The kids seemed to be receptive of it. It was some hiccups here and there, people confused on where to move to, things of that nature. And I felt like some of the stuff was a little repetitive, but with this group, if they can get it multiple times in a different type of way, I think, that'll work.
Yeah, that's the big thing. How do you think the kids are responding to the thinking maps?
The thinking about, at first, they were like, okay, why we gotta do this, something else that we have to do. Well, once they learn it, once they understand how to use it and how it helps, I think they're like it. A lot of them still don't understand why they have to do it right now, but they're willing to try.
That's good. Okay. Well, I thought the lesson went smooth. I could see a few things, but that's with any lesson. I'm sure that was first period. By the time you got to fourth period, you had everything smoothed out. Looking at the standards, we had the first three standards. Standard 1, the first element, developmentally appropriate instruction and understanding learning. I say you're right on. You know their strengths. I can tell that you know your students who understand this age and the development. So didn't see a problem with that. Meeting student needs. I know it says it's only for the final, but just make sure that when I know in this lesson you had pulled 2 students up to the front and kind of went over it with them again, but then in the hallway, there just seemed to be some confusion, and maybe, I don't know, like big numbers, big numbers above the stations. So that, the instructions were clearly given, and you can tell that some of the students knew exactly what to do, but then there were those that may not be as much auditory and maybe more visual. Yeah, just stick that big number 1 and an arrow, flashing neon. I mean, sometimes, just to make sure, because obviously those 2 students did have a need for, that one-on-one extra support. And then that would be a way to support them when the students are on their own without you being right there to guide them. They can see it. Do you have any questions about standard 1 and those 2 elements?
I think standard 1 is pretty straightforward.
Okay. Yeah. And you have a good rapport with the students, and I think they feel comfortable with you asking questions, and that's good. Standard 2, the learning differences. The first one is valuing students. Again, candidates makes students feel valued and helps them learn to respect each other. You do a good job with that. Like I said, the kids aren't afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid of how you're going to respond, and they don't seem to be afraid of how their classmates is going to respond. So that's good. Then you have students with learning differences or needs. I did a 2 here. Candidate understands the importance of making appropriate accommodations for students with learning differences or language learning development needs, but does not consistently implement them. Like I said, you know what, but it's just that consistent. And sometimes, I don't know if you had any training with universal design. It's with universal design, instead of making accommodations for Bobby and Sally, you plan overall, like you plan the big numbers in the hallway. If you show a video, you plan for the closed caption for student. I mean, it's those types of things. If you're taking, like when you do PowerPoints and you want students to take notes of the important things, and universal design, one accommodation would be using that highlighter to highlight it, not just for the students that need that extra support, but it winds up helping everybody. Okay. So it's kind of, instead of It's like preventive instead of reactive, yeah.
So instead of like, okay, I need to make 2 extra sheets for John, I'm gonna make this so that John can do it, but the kid,
But everybody else, yeah.
else can do it.
Yeah, and there's some, like, I have that one student that has visual problems, so I have to enlarge his worksheets, but I'm not gonna enlarge everybody's. But when I do stuff on the screen, I'm knowledgeable of that, so I go ahead and enlarge my screen, you know. So it's where you can, but it's just, yes, more, but it's when you design your lesson plans, you're being proactive instead of reactive at the end. And it takes some getting used to. In the beginning, it's kind of like, oh, but then it just starts to come. Second. All right, and then the third standard was the learning environment. The first element, creating a safe and positive learning climate. Again, I don't see any problem with that. I feel like you have that. You talk to the students, they talk to you. The second one, student-centered classroom. I did a 2. Candidate uses student-centered approaches to actively engage students in their learning, but then it's that consistency. I think this is hard for any teacher, is letting the students take control of their learning.
Yes.
Because at middle school, they don't want to learn. They don't want to do it. So you kind of feel like you have to.
Yeah, you have to guide.
Right.
Push them the whole way. So.
Right, but getting them used to like the thinking math activities and basically the stations you had in the hallway, the more that you do that, the more the students get used to it. And then it does become, you can step back, you know, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because they're doing it all.
And monitoring and assisting when needed, that's where I guess they want most teachers monitoring.
Right.
And assisting when needed.
When needed, instead of being there. Yeah, and it takes some time because, like I said, especially when they're antsy and everything, if you're up there, you feel like you can, you can control it. Whereas if you let them free, and this table has a question, you don't really know what that table's doing, and you hear something going on, and you. Yeah. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more the kids do it, then it becomes routine. And then managing the learning environment norms and procedures. I did a 2 on this one. Candidate has a fairly well-organized classroom with evidence of norms and procedures, but is not managing time and classroom space effectively for maximum student learning. There were some times that I felt like the time could have been better. Transition time.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I've read that down. Yeah. Well, I'd already said doing the numbers on the station would have cut down the confusion in the hallway. Even though it was explained, it would have just done that visual learner, which would have helped with the transition time. Sometimes when you're given instructions, you're wanting to go ahead and like give 4 or 5 things out. Just like what I noted down in the beginning when you were talking about your day and they were doing the flow chart. Just do that. Just talk about your day, tell them they're going to put the flow chart in order with your day. Let them get that flow chart done, and then say, okay, now by the end of the day, this is where I want us to be. Instead of doing all of it at once. Because they're already planning your flow chart for the day. And some of them were like, okay. And they didn't hear that, which would, you know, I don't want to say you wasted your time, but could have been a better use of your time. You could have just saved it when you did have your attention. And I think that's all I had. That I was just, you know, just break down, give them that one part, let them do it, and give them the next part, and let them do it. Because I know you have your agenda on the board, so they can see. Yeah. But as far as verbal instruction, you don't feel like you're repeating yourself. Do you have any?
Most of the stuff that you highlighted, I did see that. as well when I'm looking back at the lesson. It's so hard during the lesson.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what am I doing? Am I hitting this? Am I hitting it? So, but like looking back and then getting the feedback from you, it was really helping. I'm going back, sitting down, and trying to apply it, and just growing.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but thank you. I appreciate it.